Captain Jake Morrison stared at the massive alien ship floating in space before them. The ship was 3 times bigger than Earth's dawn, covered in strange blue lights that pulsed like a heartbeat. He had seen pictures of alien ships in movies. But this was real. This was actually happening. "Captain, they're sending us a message," said Lieutenant Amy Rodriguez from her station. Her voice was steady, but Jake could see her hands shaking slightly as she worked at her controls. They had all trained for this moment, but training was different from the real thing. The main screen lit up, showing the face of something that definitely wasn't human. The alien had purple skin, 4 eyes arranged in a square pattern, and what looked like tentacles where a mouth should be. When it spoke, the words came through their translation system in perfect English. "Greetings, humans of Earth. I am Ambassador Kelthara of the Vexani Empire. We have been waiting for your species to develop space travel for many cycles. We have much to discuss." Jake took a deep breath. "This is Captain Morrison of the Earth vessel Dawn. We're honored to meet you, Ambassador. We're ready to talk." Alien's tentacles moved in what might have been a smile. "Excellent. Please bring a delegation to our ship. There are others who wish to meet you as well." 2 hours later, Jake found himself walking through the corridors of an alien spaceship. The walls were made of some kind of smooth metal that seemed to glow from within. The air smelled like flowers, but not any flowers he knew from Earth. Walking beside him were Amy Rodriguez, Commander Ben Hayes, who was their diplomat, and Dr. Lisa Park, who studied alien life. They entered a huge room where 3 different types of aliens waited for them. Jake recognized Ambassador Kelthara, but the other 2 were completely different. One looked like a giant insect with silver skin and too many arms. The other was tall and thin, almost like a human but with gray skin and eyes that were completely black. "Humans," said Kelthara. "Meet Premier Zix of the Zephyr Collective and General Thork of the Kronos Federation. We represent the 3 great powers of this galaxy." Ben Hayes stepped forward with his best diplomatic smile. "We're pleased to meet all of you. Earth is excited to learn about galactic civilization." The insect-like Premier Zix made a clicking sound. "There is much you need to understand, young humans. This galaxy is at war, has been at war for over 2,000 of your years." Dr. Park couldn't hide her shock. 2,000 years? That's longer than most of human civilization? General Thork's black eyes seemed to look right through her. "Time means little when honor is at stake. Our 3 peoples have been locked in eternal conflict, each fighting for what is right and just." Jake felt confused. "But if you've been fighting for 2,000 years, why are you all here together? Why aren't you fighting right now?" Ambassador Kelthara's tentacles waved. "Even in war, there must be rules. We meet here in neutral space to discuss important matters. The arrival of humanity is such a matter." Amy Rodriguez leaned forward. "What does our arrival have to do with your war?" "Everything," said Premier Zix. "New species often bring new ideas, new technologies, new ways of fighting. We each hope that humanity will choose to ally with our cause." Over the next several hours, the 3 alien leaders took turns explaining their war to the humans. They showed holographic displays of massive space battles, planets being attacked, fleets of ships fighting across star systems. The scale was incredible and terrifying. The Vexani showed off their plasma weapons that could melt through solid rock. They demonstrated how their ships could destroy entire asteroids with single shots. Their weapons were beautiful and terrible, turning matter into glowing energy. The Zephyr Collective revealed their quantum technology. They could make their ships phase in and out of reality, appearing and disappearing like ghosts. Their weapons didn't just destroy things, they made them stop existing entirely. The Kronos Federation displayed their gravity weapons. They could make small black holes that crushed anything nearby. Jake watched in horror as they showed a recording of an enemy ship being compressed into a ball the size of a marble. "These are your most powerful weapons?" asked Amy Rodriguez. "Among our most advanced, yes," said General Thork. "Each of our peoples has developed incredible technology over the centuries of warfare." Dr. Park was studying the tactical displays. "I noticed something interesting. Your battle formations, your attack patterns, they seem very organized. Very predictable. The three aliens looked at each other. Of course, said Kelthara, we fight with honor, following the ancient ways. There are rules to war, protocols that must be followed. Rules? Jake asked. What kind of rules? Premier Zix clicked rapidly. The Vexani always attacked from the solar north. It has been their way for 800 years. The Kronos always defend their homeworld using the spiral formation. The Zephyr always retreat to the outer nebula when our losses reach 30%. Ben Hayes frowned. But doesn't that make your strategies predictable? If everyone knows what everyone else is going to do, how can anyone win? The three aliens stared at him like he had said something deeply offensive. That is not the point, said General Thork. Victory is not the goal. Honor is the goal. Fighting with courage and following the ways of our ancestors. But surely someone must be winning, said Dr. Park. After 2,000 years, one side must have an advantage. The war is perfectly balanced, said Kelthara. Each side wins some battles and loses others. Each side controls roughly equal territory. It is a beautiful eternal dance of conflict. Amy. Rodriguez looked at the casualty figures on her tablet. The numbers were staggering. You've lost 50 billion people in this war. A worthy sacrifice for honor, said Premier Zix. But what started this war? Asked Jake. What are you fighting about? The three aliens looked uncomfortable. They whispered, among themselves in their own languages. Finally, Kelthara spoke. The original cause has been lost to time. What matters is that our ancestors fought, so we fight. Our children will fight after us, and their children after them. It is the way of things. Dr. Park pulled Jake aside. Captain, I need to tell you something. I've been analyzing their cultural databases. These three species have been fighting for so long that warfare has become their entire civilization. They don't remember peace, don't even have words. For permanent victory in their languages, Ben Hayes joined them. I've been watching their body language. They're not really enemies. Look at how they interact with each other. They're comfortable together. This feels more like a game than a real war. Amy Rodriguez showed them her tactical analysis. Their weapons are incredibly advanced, but their strategies are terrible. Any human military officer would spot the flaws immediately. It's like they're trying not to win. Jake looked back at the three alien leaders who were waiting patiently for humanity's decision. They wanted Earth to choose a side, to join their eternal war. But as he looked at them, he realized something that made his blood run cold. They didn't want to win. They wanted the war to continue forever. They needed fresh blood, new ideas, someone to make the fighting interesting again. How many other species had they recruited over the centuries? How many civilizations had been consumed by this endless, pointless conflict? We need 24 hours to discuss this, Jake told the aliens. Of course, said Kelthara. Choose wisely, humans. The decision you make will determine the fate of your species for generations to come. As the human delegation returned to their ship, Jake couldn't shake the feeling that they weren't being invited to join a war. They were being invited to join a trap that had been set for their entire species. The question was, what were they going to do about it? The meeting room aboard Earth's Dawn felt smaller than usual. Captain Jake Morrison sat at the head of the table, looking at the faces of his crew. Everyone was quiet, still trying to process what they had learned from the aliens. The weight of their decision pressed down on them like a heavy blanket. So, Jake said finally, we're supposed to pick a side in a war that's been going on for 2,000 years. A war where 50 billion people have died. A war that nobody even remembers how it started. Lieutenant Amy Rodriguez pulled up the tactical data on her tablet. Captain, I've been studying their combat footage for the past 6 hours. These aliens fight like they're putting on a show, not like they're trying to win. She projected the battle recordings onto the main screen. Space battles played out in slow motion, showing the three alien fleets engaging each other in elaborate formations. Look at this. The Vexani always approach from the same direction. Always. Every single battle for 800 years. Commander Ben Hayes leaned forward. It's not just tradition. That's tactical suicide. Any enemy would learn to expect that and prepare defenses. Exactly, Amy continued. And watch what the Zephyr do. Every time they lose 30% of their ships, they retreat to the same nebula. Every time. The Kronos know exactly where they're going, but they never chase them there. Dr. Lisa Park had been quiet during the discussion, but now she spoke up. I've been analyzing their psychological profiles. These species have been selectively breeding for war for so long that peace literally makes them anxious. Their brains are wired to need conflict. Sergeant Danny Cooper, who had been silent until now, shook his head. This is insane. I've served in 3 different conflicts back on Earth. The whole point of fighting is to end the fighting. You fight to win, then you go home. But that's just it, said Chief Engineer Kate Adams. They don't want to go home. War is their home. That's all they know. Jake stood up and walked to the window, looking out at the alien ships in the distance. Ben, what's your take on this from a diplomatic angle? Ben sighed. Honestly, Captain, I don't think this is about diplomacy at all. They're not looking for allies. They're looking for new players to keep their game interesting. Communications Officer Ryan Taylor had been monitoring alien transmissions during their meeting. He looked up from his console with a troubled expression. Captain, I've been listening to their military channels. You need to hear this. He played back a conversation between Vexani commanders. The translation came through clearly. The humans seem promising. Their technology is primitive, but their thinking appears different. They may provide the spark needed to revitalize the Great Dance. The Great Dance? Jake asked. That's what they call their war, Ryan explained. Another voice came through the speakers. Yes, like the Kaleri before them, and the Mothtai before that. Each new species brings fresh energy to the eternal conflict. Room went dead silent. Amy was the first to speak. They've done this before. They've recruited other species into their war. Dr. Park's face had gone pale. Where are these other species now? The Kaleri and the Mothtai? Ryan checked his files. According to the alien databases, centuries before achieving glorious integration with their chosen factions. Glorious integration, Ben repeated slowly. They recruited these species, used them up in their war, and absorbed whatever was left. Danny Cooper slammed his fist on the table. They're planning to do the same thing to us, get us involved in their endless war until there's nothing left of humanity. Kate Adams had been running calculations on her tablet. Captain, I've been analyzing their technology. These 3 factions could have ended their war centuries ago if they wanted to. Each faction has weapons that could completely destroy the others, but they're not using them. What do you mean? Jake asked. The Vexani plasma technology could be modified to burn through Zephyr quantum shields. The Zephyr quantum phase technology could bypass Kronos gravity defenses entirely. The Kronos gravity manipulation could crush Vexani plasma generators before they could fire. Kate looked up from her calculations. They're deliberately avoiding using their most effective strategies? Amy nodded. Dr. Park added, I've found something else disturbing in their cultural records. Every few hundred years, they have something called a renewal ceremony, where they bring in a new species to join the war. It's always presented as a great honor. How many species have they recruited? Jake asked. According to their historical records, at least 12 different species over the past 2,000 years. None of them exist as independent civilizations anymore. Finally, Ben spoke up. So what do we do? If we choose a side, we become part of their eternal war machine. We refuse to choose, they might attack us anyway. Danny Cooper leaned back in his chair. From a military perspective, they've shown us a fatal weakness. They're so locked into their patterns that they can't adapt to new tactics. Any decent military strategist could exploit that. But we're just one ship, Amy pointed out. Have entire fleets, whole civilizations devoted to warfare. True, said Kate Adams, but they've also shown us all their technology. The Vexani demonstrated their plasma weapons, the Zephyr showed us their quantum systems, and the Kronos revealed their gravity manipulation. If we could somehow combine all 3 technologies... Jake turned back to face his crew. Are you suggesting what I think you're suggesting? I'm suggesting we think like humans instead of like these aliens, Kate replied. They fight to perpetuate war. We fight to end war. What if we ended their war for them? Ryan Taylor looked up from his console. Captain, I've been monitoring communications from all three factions. They're already making plans for humanity's integration into their conflict. They're dividing up Earth's resources, planning how to use our people as soldiers and workers. They're that confident we'll join them? Ben asked. They have to be, Dr. Park said. It's worked 12 times before. From their perspective, it's inevitable. New species always choose a side eventually. Amy Rodriguez stood up suddenly. If we didn't choose a side, what if we chose something else entirely? Like what? Jake asked. Like ending the whole thing? Not by negotiating peace, but by making war impossible. Danny Cooper grinned. Now you're thinking like a Marine. Sometimes the only way to win is to change the rules of the game. Jake looked around the room at his crew. These were good people. Smart people. People who had volunteered to represent humanity among the stars. They had expected to find wonders and new friends out here. Instead, they had found a galaxy trapped in an endless cycle of violence and death. If we do this, Jake said slowly, we'd be going up against 3 galactic empires. We'd be outnumbered, 1,000,000 to 1. We'd have something they don't, Kate pointed out. We'd have surprise. They can't imagine anyone actually trying to end their war. It's literally outside their ability to think. Plus, Amy added, we'd be fighting too. End the conflict, not to win it. Our goals would be completely different from anything they've ever faced. Dr. Park nodded. Psychologically, they're not equipped to handle an enemy that doesn't want to perpetuate the war. It would be like trying to play chess with someone. Who wants to put all the pieces back in the box? Jake made his decision. All right. We're not going to choose a side in their war. We're going to end their war. All of it. Forever. The crew looked at him with expressions ranging from excitement to terror. They were about to attempt something that had never been tried before. Something that might save the galaxy or get them all killed in the process. Ryan, start monitoring all their communications. I want to know everything about their military operations. Kate, begin analyzing how we might combine their technologies. Amy, start looking for weaknesses in their defenses. Danny, think about how human military tactics might work against their predictable strategies. As his crew got to work, Jake stared out at the alien ships again. In 24 hours, they would have to give their answer to the 3 factions. But the answer they were planning to give would be unlike anything the galaxy had heard in 2,000 years. They were going to tell 3 galactic empires that their eternal war was over. The next 18 hours passed in a blur of activity aboard Earth's Dawn. Captain Jake Morrison had divided his crew into teams, each working on a different part of their impossible plan. The ship's corridors buzzed with quiet conversations and the sound of people working frantically at their stations. Lieutenant Colonel Sam Phillips had joined them from the military section of the ship. He was a tall man with gray hair who had planned battles on 3 different planets. Back on Earth, Jake had called him in because they needed someone who understood war from a human perspective. Captain, Sam said, spreading out holographic displays. Across the main table, I've been studying their battle records for the past 12 hours. These aliens fight like they're following a script written by their great-grandfathers. Amy Rodriguez nodded from her station. Every battle follows the same pattern. The Vexani make their plasma attack from solar north. The Zephyr respond with quantum phase strikes from the eastern quadrant. The Kronos counter with gravity bombs deployed in the spiral formation. It's like watching the same movie over and over again, added Danny Cooper. Except people actually die in these movies. Sam pointed to a tactical display. Look at this battle from 50 years ago. Now look at this one from last week. The only difference is the ships are slightly newer. Same positions, same tactics, same outcome. Either side really wins or loses. Dr. Lisa Park looked up from her research station. I've found something disturbing in their genetic records. Cues these 3 species have been modifying themselves for warfare. The Vexani have enhanced reflexes for operating plasma weapons. The Zephyr have modified brains that can handle quantum calculations. The Kronos have reinforced bones for surviving high-gravity environments. They've turned themselves into living weapons, Ben Hayes said quietly. More than that, Dr. Park continued. They've lost the ability to adapt. Their genetic modifications lock them into specific combat roles. A Vexani literally cannot think of using weapons other than plasma cannons. A Zephyr cannot imagine tactics that don't involve quantum phasing. Kate Adams wiped sweat from her forehead as she worked at the engineering console. Captain, I think I've figured out how to combine their technologies. The key is that none of them have ever tried to mix different weapon systems. What do you mean? Jake asked. The Vexani plasma technology could be powered by Kronos gravity manipulation. The Zephyr quantum systems could be stabilized using Vexani plasma containment fields. The Kronos gravity weapons could be enhanced with Zephyr quantum targeting. Kate's eyes were bright with excitement. Each technology fills the gaps in the others. Ryan Taylor looked up from his communications station. Captain, I've been monitoring their networks. They're not even trying to hide their military plans from each other. All three factions know exactly what the others are going to do in their next battles. They know, and they don't care? Sam asked. They know because they want it that way, Ryan explained. I found communications talking about maintaining the balance and preserving the eternal dance. They're actively working to make sure nobody wins too much. Jake felt sick to his stomach. They're managing their own war, making sure it never ends. Amy Rodriguez had been quiet while running combat simulations. She spoke up with something like awe in her voice. Captain, I've run the numbers. If we could hit all three factions simultaneously, targeting their key military production facilities, we could end their ability to wage war within hours. Hours, Ben Hayes asked. Their entire military system depends on centralized production. The Vexani have 3 plasma refineries. The Zephyr have 5 quantum generators. The Kronos have 4 gravity manipulation stations. Take out those facilities, and they can't make new weapons. Sam Phillips studied the tactical data. It's risky. We'd be splitting our forces across multiple targets, attacking 3 different Rizus enemies at the same time. But that's exactly why it would work, Danny Cooper said. They've never faced an enemy that attacked all of them at once. Their defensive strategies are designed to fight one faction while staying neutral with the other, Dr. Park added. Psychologically, they can't process the concept of a fourth faction. Their entire worldview is built around 3-way conflict. A fourth player would break their mental framework. Kate Adams brought up a schematic of Earth's dawn. I've been working on modifications to our ship. If we can get samples of their technology, I can create hybrid systems that none of them have defenses against. How do we get samples? Jake asked. Amy Rodriguez smiled grimly. We ask for them. Remember, they want us to choose a side. Each faction will be happy to share their technology with their new human allies. That's brilliant, Ben Hayes said. We tell each faction privately that we're choosing them, get access to their technology. Then use all 3 technologies against all 3 factions. Ryan Taylor was already working on his console. I can set up secure communication channels with each faction, make them think we're negotiating separately with them. Sam Phillips nodded approvingly. Classic divide and conquer strategy. But instead of dividing to conquer, we're dividing to end the whole conflict. Over the next few hours, the plan took shape. Amy Rodriguez would take a small team to visit the Zephyr Collective, claiming that humanity was impressed by their quantum technology. She would gather intelligence on their defenses while getting access to their quantum systems. Ben Hayes would approach the Kronos Federation, praising their gravity weapons and asking for technical demonstrations. His diplomatic skills would help him gain access to their command structures. Danny Cooper would join a Vexani patrol mission, claiming that human soldiers wanted to learn from the galaxy's finest warriors. He would study their plasma technology, while mapping their defensive positions. Meanwhile, Kate Adams would modify their ship using the technology samples they gathered. Ryan Taylor would monitor all 3 factions, communications to coordinate their attacks. Dr. Park would continue studying alien psychology to predict their responses. This plan requires perfect timing, Jake warned them. If any faction realizes what we're doing before we're ready, they could warn the others. Or they could attack Earth, Amy pointed out soberly. We need to remember that we're not just risking our own lives here. If this goes wrong, humanity could become extinct. The room fell quiet as everyone considered that possibility. They were. gambling with the future of their entire species based on their analysis of alien psychology and tactics. Sam Phillips broke the silence. "Captain, I've fought in wars where the stakes were high, but nothing like this. Are we really sure this is the right thing to do?" Jake looked around the room at his crew. These people had followed him across the galaxy to make first contact with alien civilizations. They were planning to attack 3 galactic empires to end a war that had raged for 2,000 years. "The alternative is letting our species get drawn into their eternal war," Jake said finally. "Becoming the 13th species to be consumed by their endless conflict. I'd rather try to save the galaxy than watch humanity slowly disappear into their war machine." Dr. Park nodded. "From what I've seen in their records, every previous species started the same way. First they chose a side, then they got more involved, then they lost their independence, then they lost their identity. Eventually they were just another part of the war machine. And 50 billion people have died in this war already," Ben added. "How many more will die if it continues for another 2,000 years? Kate Adams looked up from her engineering plans. "Captain, I need 6 hours to complete the ship modifications. Can the teams gather the technology samples in that time?" Amy Rodriguez checked her tactical schedule. "The Zephyr want to show us their quantum labs tomorrow. I can be back in 4 hours with what we need." "The Kronos have invited me to observe their gravity weapons testing in 3 hours," Ben said. "I should have their technical data by then." Cooper grinned. "The Vexani want to take me on a combat patrol in 2 hours. I'll learn everything about their plasma systems firsthand." Jake made his decision. "All right, people. We have 6 hours to gather alien technology, modify our ship, and prepare to end a 2,000-year-old war. Let's make them count." As his crew dispersed to their various missions, Jake remained in the meeting room, staring at the tactical displays showing the 3 alien fleets. In a few hours, they would either make history by ending the galaxy's longest war, or they would die trying. Either way, the galaxy was about to learn that humans didn't play by the same rules as everyone else. 5 hours and 37 minutes after the human teams returned from their missions, Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of Earth's dawn, watching 3 alien fleets gather in the neutral zone. The ship hummed with new energy as Kate Adams's modifications powered up systems that had never existed before. "All teams report ready, Captain," Amy Rodriguez announced from her tactical station. Her mission to the Zephyr had been successful. She had returned with quantum phase technology and detailed maps of their defense systems. Ben Hayes stood beside his communication console, looking tired but determined. "The Kronos gravity manipulation systems are online and integrated with our weapons. I have no idea what we took from their testing facility." Danny Cooper grinned as he checked his plasma rifle, now modified with technology from all 3 factions. "The Vexani taught me everything about their plasma systems. They were so proud to show off to their new human allies." Kate Adams wiped oil from her hands as she finished the last modifications. "Captain, all 3 alien technologies are now integrated into our ship systems. We have capabilities that none of them have ever seen before." The main screen showed Ambassador Kelthara, Premier Zix, and General Thork waiting aboard the Vexani flagship. They expected humanity to announce which faction they had chosen to support. They looked confident, almost bored, as if this meeting was just a formality. Captain Ryan Taylor said quietly, "I'm detecting massive fleet movements from all 3 factions. They're positioning their ships for what looks like a major battle." "Let me guess," Jake said grimly. "They're planning to demonstrate their power for their new human allies." "Exactly. Each faction has brought their most advanced warships. They want to impress us with their military might." Dr. Lisa Park looked up from her analysis station. "Captain, I've been monitoring their biological signs. All 3 alien leaders show elevated excitement levels. They're actually looking forward to this." Sam Phillips studied the tactical display showing the positions of the 3 fleets. They've arranged themselves in the classic 3-way formation, each faction positioned to attack the other 2 simultaneously. It's like they're setting up for a show battle. Jake took a deep breath. Everything depended on the next few minutes. If their plan worked, the galaxy's longest war would end today. If it failed, humanity might not survive to see tomorrow. Open a channel to all 3 flagships, Jake ordered. The main screen split into 3 sections, showing the alien leaders. Ambassador Kelthara's tentacles waved expectantly. Premier Zix's insect-like head tilted in curiosity.
Ow.
General Thorks. Black eyes stared intently at the human captain. Humans, said Kelthara. The time has come for you to choose. Which faction will have the honor of calling humanity their allies? Jake looked directly into the camera. We've made our choice. Humanity chooses to end this war. The 3 aliens looked confused. Premier Zix clicked rapidly. That is not one of the options, Captain Morrison. You must choose a faction to support. No, Jake said firmly. We choose to end the war. All of it. Permanently, General Thorks. Expression darkened. That is impossible, human. The great dance is eternal. It cannot be ended. Watch us, Jake replied, nodded to Amy Rodriguez. The first strike happened so fast that the aliens didn't have time to react. Earth's dawn suddenly displayed capabilities that shouldn't exist. The ship's weapons systems targeted critical infrastructure across all 3 empires simultaneously. Amy Rodriguez fired quantum-enhanced plasma beams at the Vexani plasma refineries. The weapons phased through their shields as if they weren't there, and burned through the facilities with impossible precision. 3 major production centers vanished in balls of superheated gas. At the same time, gravity-focused quantum disruptors struck the Zephyr Collective's quantum generators. The weapons created localized gravity, wells that crushed the delicate quantum machinery while phasing the debris out of existence. 5 key facilities simply stopped being. Plasma-charged gravity. Bombs hit the Kronos Federation's gravity manipulation stations. The weapons used the station's own gravity fields against them, creating feedback loops that tore the facilities apart from the inside. For strategic installations collapsed into themselves and disappeared. The demonstration lasted exactly 5 minutes. In that time, the production capacity that had fueled a 2,000-year war was eliminated. The 3 factions could no longer manufacture the weapons that had defined their existence. The silence that followed was deafening. On the main screen, the 3 alien leaders stared in shock. Their tentacles, mandibles, and faces showed expressions of complete disbelief. Disbelief, whispered Ambassador Kelthara. Our plasma refineries had shields that could stop any weapon. Your shields were designed to stop plasma, quantum, or gravity weapons individually, Amy Rodriguez explained calmly. They were never tested against weapons that used all 3 technologies together. Premier Zix's clicking became frantic.
Our
Quantum generators were protected by phase variance fields. Nothing could touch them. Nothing from your universe, Ben Hayes said. But our gravity-focused disruptors created localized space-time distortions that bypassed your phase fields entirely. General Thork's black eyes seemed to grow even darker. Gravity stations were hardened against all known weapons. What you described should not be possible. Your stations were built to resist external attacks, Danny Cooper said with a slight smile. But our plasma-charged gravity bombs worked from the inside, using your own gravity fields as the weapon. Kate Adams appeared on screen beside Jake. The key was combination technology. Each of your species developed incredible weapons. But you never tried to merge different approaches. Humans excel at taking separate ideas and making them work together. Dr. Park added, your psychological conditioning prevented you from even imagining such combinations. Your minds are locked into thinking about plasma, quantum, or gravity as separate systems. The alien leaders tried to respond, but their communications were cut short as reports flooded in from across the galaxy. The strikes had been more effective than even the humans had hoped. Secondary explosions and cascade failures were destroying additional facilities that hadn't been directly targeted. Ryan. Taylor monitored the incoming messages. Captain, it's working better than we planned. The Vexani have lost 70% of their plasma production capacity. The Zephyr quantum network is completely offline. The Kronos gravity grid has collapsed across 4 star systems. But Jake wasn't finished. Amy, begin Phase 2. The second phase of the attack targeted the command and control systems that coordinated the three fleets. But instead of destroying them, the humans did something unprecedented. They hacked into all three networks simultaneously and began broadcasting a message to every ship in all three fleets. The message was simple. The war is over. Your governments can no longer produce weapons. Your fleets can no longer be resupplied. You have a choice. Continue fighting with what you have until everyone is dead, or choose peace. Across hundreds of star systems, alien soldiers and ship captains heard the message. For the first time in their lives, they had to consider an option that had never existed before. The possibility that the war could actually end. Sam Phillips watched the tactical displays as something remarkable happened. Individual ships began powering down their weapons, not because they were surrendering, but because their crews were choosing to stop fighting. Captain Amy Rodriguez said with wonder in her voice, "The Zephyr 3rd Fleet just broadcast a ceasefire. Message to the Kronos ships in the Outer Rim? The Kronos ships are responding with their own ceasefire. The Vexani 7th Squadron is sharing food supplies with a damaged Zephyr vessel," Danny Cooper reported. "I don't think they've done anything like that in centuries." Dr. Park was monitoring biological readings from across the fleets. "Captain, the stress levels in alien crew members are dropping rapidly. Without the constant pressure to fight, their bodies are literally relaxing for the first time in their lives." On the main screen, the three alien leaders looked lost. Ambassador Kelthara's tentacles hung limply. Premier Zix had stopped clicking entirely. General Thork stared at nothing. "What have you done?" Kelthara whispered. "We ended your war," Jake said simply. "Your fleets can still fight for a few more months with existing weapons, but they can't build new ones. Eventually, you'll run out of ammunition. Then you'll have to find something else to do with your lives." "But the great dance," Premier Zix said weakly. "It has always been. It must always be." "No," Dr. Park said gently. "It doesn't. Wars are supposed to end. It's the whole point of fighting them. You win, you lose, or you make peace. But you don't fight forever." General Thork's voice was barely audible. "Without the war, what are we? What is our purpose?" Ben Hayes leaned forward. "That's something you'll have to figure out together. For the first time in 2,000 years, you're free to become something other than warriors." As the reports continued to come in, it became clear that the human strategy had worked perfectly. The galaxy's longest war was ending not with a final battle, but with the simple inability to continue fighting. The three factions still had their fleets, their territories, and their populations. 6 months after the day that changed everything, Captain Jake Morrison stood in what used to be the largest weapons factory in the Vexani Empire. Now it was something completely different. The massive plasma forges had been converted into food production facilities. The assembly lines that once built cannons now manufactured medical equipment. The sound of weapons being tested had been replaced by the laughter of children. Dr. Lisa Park walked beside him, carrying a tablet full of reports from across the galaxy. "The psychological rehabilitation programs are working better than we hoped," she said. "It turns out that once the aliens stopped fighting, their stress levels dropped so much that they started thinking more clearly." Jake watched a group of young Vexani learning to grow plants in the converted factory floors. Her purple skin looked brighter, healthier than it had 6 months ago. "How are they adapting to peace?" "Surprisingly well. The younger generation is adapting fastest. Children who were raised expecting to become soldiers are now becoming farmers, artists, engineers. The older aliens are having a harder time, but they're slowly learning." They walked through corridors that had once echoed with the sounds of war preparations. Now those same corridors buzzed with different kinds of activity. Former weapons designers were working alongside engineers from all three species, developing new technologies for peaceful purposes. Commander Ben Hayes approached them with a smile on his face. "Captain, you need to see what's happening in the main assembly hall." They followed him to what had been the central weapons testing facility. Jake stopped in amazement. Representatives from all three species were working together on some kind of massive construction project. Exani engineers were collaborating with Zephyr scientists, while Kronos technicians provided support. "What are they building?" Jake asked. Hospital ship, Ben explained. The first joint project between all three species in over 2,000 years. They're combining their technologies to create medical facilities that can help planets damaged by the war. Amy Rodriguez joined them, looking tired but happy. She had spent the past 6 months coordinating reconstruction efforts across multiple star systems. Captain, I just got word from the Outer Rim. The last of the old battle stations has been converted into a research facility. Research into what? Dr. Park asked. Terraforming. They're trying to restore planets that were damaged. During the war, some worlds haven't seen life for centuries because of the fighting. Now they want to bring them back. Jake felt a warmth in his chest that he hadn't expected. When they had ended the war, he had hoped to save lives. He hadn't imagined that stopping the fighting would unleash so much creativity and cooperation. Danny. Cooper appeared from around a corner, escorting a group of young aliens who looked like they came from all three species. Captain, meet the first class of the Galactic Peace Academy. The young aliens looked nervous but excited. A young Vexani with bright purple skin stepped forward. Captain Morrison, sir, we wanted to thank you. Because of what you did, we get to choose what we want to be when we grow up. Young Zephyr. With silver skin added, my parents were soldiers. My grandparents were soldiers. I'm going to be a teacher. A young Kronos with gray skin and bright eyes said, I want to learn how to build cities instead of destroying them. Oh. To their level, you don't need to thank me. You're the ones doing the hard work of building a better galaxy. As the young aliens continued their tour with Danny, Kate Adams arrived with engineering reports. Captain, the reconstruction projects are ahead of schedule. Aliens are working so efficiently together that they're accomplishing things faster than anyone thought possible. What do you mean? Jake asked. When they were fighting, each species kept their best ideas secret. Now that they're sharing knowledge, they're solving problems that stumped them for centuries. The Vexani plasma technology is perfect for powering Zephyr quantum computers. The Kronos gravity manipulation makes Vexani terraforming much more effective. Ryan Taylor approached with his communication equipment. Captain, I've got someone who wants to talk to you. The screen lit up, showing Ambassador Kelthara, but she looked completely different. Her tentacles moved with energy and purpose instead of the tired resignation Jake remembered. Her 4 eyes were bright with something he had never seen in them before. Hope. Captain Morrison, she said, I wanted to give you an update on the council sessions. How are they going? Jake asked. Better than anyone expected. The first time in our recorded history, all three species are working together to solve problems instead of creating them. We've established trade routes, cultural exchange programs, and joint research projects. Any problems with the transition? Kelthara's tentacles twisted in what Jake had learned was the Vexani equivalent of a thoughtful expression. There are challenges. Many of our people don't know how to live without conflict. We're having to teach basic concepts like negotiation and compromise. Premier Zix appeared on the screen beside Kelthara. The insect-like leader looked less aggressive than Jake remembered. Captain? The Zephyr Collective wants you to know that our quantum research has advanced more in 6 months of peace than in the previous century of war. General Thork's image joined the others. His black eyes no longer seemed cold and threatening. The Kronos Federation has discovered something remarkable. Our gravity manipulation technology, when used for construction instead of destruction, can build structures that will last for millions of years. Jake smiled. It sounds like you're all finding new purposes. That is exactly what has happened, Kelthara said. We are discovering that we are capable of so much more than fighting. Our species have talents and abilities that war never allowed us to explore. Dr. Park stepped forward. How are your populations adjusting to the changes, younger generations? Are embracing peace enthusiastically? Premier Zix clicked. The older populations are more resistant, but even they are beginning to see the benefits. Crime rates have dropped to almost nothing. Mental health problems that we thought were normal are disappearing. Our people are happier than they have been in living memory. General Thork added, We have begun studying the histories of the species you mentioned, Captain. The 12 civilizations that joined our war and disappeared. We are learning from their mistakes, finding ways to honor their memory by not repeating their fate. Ben Hayes asked, What have you learned about those lost species? They were absorbed into our war machine gradually, Kelthara explained. First they chose sides, then they became dependent on us for technology and resources, then they lost their independence, and finally, they lost their identity. We are working to preserve the memory of their cultures and contributions. Amy Rodriguez looked up from her reports. Speaking of preservation, how are the memorial projects going? Species is building monuments to the victims of the endless war, General Thork said. Not monuments celebrating battle, but monuments mourning the waste of life. We want future generations to remember the cost of pointless conflict. Jake felt proud of how far the galaxy had come. What's next for the three species? We're planning joint exploration missions, Premier Zix said excitedly. Instead of fighting over territory, we want to discover new worlds together. There are parts of the galaxy that have been unexplored for millennia because we were too busy fighting. We are also working on cultural exchange programs, Kelthera added. For 2,000 years, our species only interacted through warfare. Now we are learning about each other's art, music, philosophy, and science. General Thork leaned forward. But most importantly, Captain, we are teaching our children about humanity. About the species that showed us there was another way. Jake felt embarrassed by the praise. We just did what seemed obvious to us. Wars are supposed to end. That wisdom was not obvious to us, Kelthara said softly. We had forgotten that. Peace was possible, you reminded us. As the conversation continued, Jake realized that the galaxy had not just ended a war, it had begun something entirely new. The three species were discovering abilities and interests they never knew they had. They were forming friendships across species lines that had been an enemy. Borders for millennia. Ryan Taylor received a message and smiled. Captain, Earth is sending the first official diplomatic mission to the galaxy. They want to establish formal relations with the new Galactic Cooperation Council. When do they arrive? Jake asked. Next month, Captain. They're bringing scientists, artists, teachers, and engineers. They want to learn from what's happening here. Dr. Park laughed. Earth wants to learn from the galaxy that was stuck in. Eternal war? Not from the war, Ben Hayes said. It's from the peace. What's happening here is unprecedented. Three species that were mortal enemies for 2,000 years are now working together like they've been allies forever. Jake looked around at his crew, the aliens working together in the converted factory, and the images of the three leaders on the screen. 6 months ago, they had taken the biggest gamble in human history. They had risked everything to end a war. That seemed impossible to stop. Now they could see the results. The galaxy was healing. Entire civilizations were discovering new purposes. Children were growing up with possibilities their parents never imagined.